Hello and welcome to the YouTube channel for craftworld.eldar.com. I'm Brent, and this is the annual Farseers report, in which I will look back at the channel's content briefly from 2024, and more importantly, talk about plans for 2025 and what's coming soon. So let's dive in. For starters, 2024 was the most prolific year yet for the channel. I put out 37 different videos, and this is really entirely due to the fact that the community has been so supportive. The subscribers have been pretty steadily growing, and the community of patrons has really grown, which has inspired me and enabled me to spend more time working on the channel, despite needing to do other things like my real job and look after my children. But nevertheless, I had a blast. It was an exciting year, despite the fact there were no big content releases for Eldar, really. And they spent a lot of the year coming off of the sort of OP power spike that characterized them in the very first months of the edition. My favorite video from 2024 was undoubtedly the deep dive on Eldari lore. That was a major project. I had a ton of hours into that. And if you haven't seen it, I hope that you might give it a watch. Even if you already know a lot about Eldari lore, I think it's a fun listen. I will link it in the comments below. I hope that one stays in circulation and that you'll share it with people and that it continues to be relevant. The most popular video is the unsurprisingly sort of generic general video on how to play Eldari in 10th edition. Every time I do one of those, it tends to be the most watched video of the year for the channel. I think I also had fun making the look back at first edition Eldar, Rogue Trader era Eldar, in the lead up to the big lore video. That was a fun one, if sort of short, and certainly proportionally a significantly lesser project. And then I like to talk about what I think was my most overlooked video in these end of the year reports. My most overlooked video was actually from the very end of 2023, but in my Farseers report then, it was too recent for me to talk about it. I made a video on how to pick a faction for Warhammer 40k, like a general interest video on where to start with picking an army that might appeal. And I had a blast with it. I think it's some of the better content that I've done, and it never really took off. So I'm also going to link that one in the comments. Okay, but let's skip to the more exciting stuff. What's coming for 2025? So as we know, 2025 will be a banner year for Space Elves, in addition to numerous new kits, including a new Phoenix Lord and plastic kits for pretty much all of the Aspect Warriors that haven't received updates, except perhaps Dire Avengers. We're getting our Codex, right? Second. So we know Imperial Guard is first, Eldari is second, which leads me to suspect that we will get a Space Elf Codex maybe in the end of January, but I don't think so. Probably in February or maybe the very beginning of March, but very likely next month. And that's incredibly exciting. I, as of yet, have not been noticed by GW. So I don't, as far as I know, I'm not going to have any early access or anything. So that means I'll be getting it along with all of the rest of you, and calling out of work for a day and spending a full day doing a workup. And then right after it drops, I will release a video including first impressions, a rundown of all of the changes to all of the data cards that have changed, which will probably be most of them. I'll talk a bit about significant changes to point values. I'll do an overview of each of the detachments. There will be many in that book, with some thoughts on strong builds and synergies. I will also talk a bit, if there are any updates to the lore, I will address that. I don't know that there will be, but sometimes we get bits of splash fiction or just straight up nonfiction updates to the overall narrative in 40k or what's happening with Space Elves. And if any of that turns up in the Codex, I will also talk about that at the end of the video. And it's possible that the Codex will initially release in some sort of box set with miniatures. This happens sometimes. I've even wondered if we might not see in 2025 some sort of new combo Emperor's Children Eldari release set, like intro set, the way we did with Chaos Space Marines back with Eldritch Omens. And sometimes updates to narrative and lore come in softcover printed books and those kinds of sets too. But if there are any updates to the lore, I will also mention those. But my focus will be on changes to data cards and certainly those new detachments that will totally redefine the way we can play Eldari on the table. I won't know for sure until I see the codex, but I'm guessing that I will sort of cover highlights and, again, sort of like general top synergies and combos in that initial video, which I think will already be quite long. And then I will do follow-up videos, an in-depth video for each of the new detachments, even the one that inevitably sucks because there usually is one, talking about how best to approach it in terms of competitive play, its like narrative properties, and how it may fit with overall craft world concepts or pre-existing playstyles, and also what new playstyles it may offer. I will also be doing, of course, new unit focus videos on all of those units that are getting updates, which I assume is going to be like all of them pretty much. There were over 60 Eldari units in the index, and my guess is that the vast majority of those data cards will change. But I think it's very likely that my very first unit focus videos will be directed towards units that did not previously exist in the game, like the Warp Spider Phoenix Lord and the Corsair Transport. Although I may put the Corsair Transport one just into talking about whatever detachment is obviously for Corsairs. And it's possible that I'll be so excited to talk about the Warp Spider Phoenix Lord when I do the overall Codex video that I kind of say everything that I have to say about that model. We'll just have to see how it shakes out. But I will cover all that content in good order and quickly. Unit focus videos, of course, will just continue to come out throughout the year. But I'll try to bang out workups of each of the detachments pretty soon after the Codex drops. Between now and the Codex dropping, this like 6 to 8 week time frame, I do have one tactics video that I think I'm going to do on trading units and the process of trading units as an elf player, which I think will continue to be relevant after the Codex, even if some of these units change a little bit. In part because I think that some Space Elf players, because of the whole narrative around Space Elves, right? They're like they're a dying race and every elf life is very precious. Sometimes players making the transition to more competitive play just have a hard time trading their elves. And then probably the biggest thing that I have planned for between now and the Codex is a video geared towards helping players new to Eldari pick a craft world. So it'll be a rundown of all of the major craft worlds, their playstyles, their color schemes, a little bit about their lore, enough to establish what's cool about them and what their personality is like, both on and off the table. And then I'll either have a separate video for the minor craft worlds, if that one is pretty long, and I think it likely will be, or if not, I will incorporate the minor craft worlds into that video. I'm also going to do a video on creating your own craft world, creating a custom craft world. What sorts of questions you might want to think about if you're making up lore, how to do it in a way that makes it feel like it fits with the overall Eldari narrative in 40K, and maybe even a little bit about how to think about color schemes. You know, I'm an Ibersil player, so I play one of the minor craft worlds, but I'm also a guy who does writing for the nerd industry occasionally, and I think about all of this stuff a lot. And I've thought about, if I had the time and energy and resources to also be developing my own craft world on the side, what would that be like? I'm not going to talk about that. You don't care. But I will provide some guidelines for people who want to think about developing original craft worlds. I may also do a couple of micro lore videos. I've thought about doing one just on the Crone swords, which I left out of the Eldari lore video because I thought it was like long enough. And I was vaguely flirting with the idea of doing one on how to deal with difficult players at the table. And I don't mean people cheating. I just mean people who can be sort of socially unpleasant. What's the best way to navigate that in a club or a tournament setting? I don't know if I'll get to that one or not, and I don't know if there's enough interest for that really to be worthwhile. But it's certainly something I've done a lot of thinking about. So that's kind of what I've got in mind. A little bit of lore, a big video about choosing craft worlds, which will not be geared towards rules at all, because rules have finally been blessedly detached from choice of paint scheme. Probably one tactics video sooner rather than later, and then the codex and all the glory that inevitably follows a publication of that scale. And there will certainly be a lot of time to explore those different attachments and move through a lot of unit focus videos. I am just kind of guessing, and this is a guess simply based on historical patterns, that we have probably around 18 months left in 10th edition. And maybe 11th edition will be one of those editions in which codexes continue to be viable at the beginning of the edition. So, I mean, most editions have not had indexes. So I'm guessing that we're going to have this one for a while. And so I'm sure that the insights and the suggestions that I make within a day or two of having seen the book for the first time will certainly not be as enlightened and refined as the sorts of judgments we're all going to be able to make a year out. But I'm going to do it anyway, and I'm looking forward to it. I'm really excited for the Space Self future that is 2025. It's going to be a big year for us. Okay, so that's what I've got. If you have content that you would particularly like to see, please mention that in the comments below. It does make a difference. And if you've been on the fence about becoming a patron, I hope that you will consider doing that. The Discord community is incredibly active. The community of patrons has really grown, and it's just a delightful group of people that includes both players who are totally new and also like crazy salty narrative veterans, and also people who like sometimes win GTs. It's just a great eclectic combination of people who all have in common that they're big fans of space elves. And it's only $3 a month. Also, a big thank you to my wonderful sponsor, the Magnet Baron, who's stuck with me for 3 years now. Thank you, Constantine. You're awesome. Your magnets are awesome. And I'm looking forward to continuing to work together. Okay, that's it. Take care and best of luck in your next campaign. Bye.